Hello, Booktube. I thought I'd make a quick video about the hauls that I've been finding at my little free libraries, which also gives me a chance to ask you about your own little free libraries. It's a social phenomenon that has cropped up and blossomed in just I swear, the last half decade, all over the world, where suddenly there are these little boxes, all various shapes and sizes of little free libraries where people will stock them, and then the whole thing is supposed to just roll forward in pay-it-forward momentum where no one is actually running the little free library. Maybe the person who puts it in front of their house has a supply of books, but other people are supposed to donate books as well. It's supposed to be a kind of a rolling generosity thing. I think it's fascinating, and I want to hear all about yours. There are 3 little free libraries on the various routes that I walk with my little bean, who is right next to me. She's not on her perch. She's right next to me on the couch. I've noticed that in the last few days, maybe a week, she has been more and more inclined to stick really close to me and not the foot of the bed or the other end of the fainting couch or her perch. I don't know why that is. It could be that she's extra sensitive to the cold. I mean, she's going on 6. That's not completely young anymore for a dog. It could be she's never particularly liked the cold, maybe. That's the reason. But we have routes that we go on walks, right? Of those of you who have dogs, I'm sure you do the same thing. Unless you are a member of the small group that I have an issue with, I'm hoping that you're not. Putting your dog out in a yard is not good enough. That is not good enough. It takes your dog approximately 2 circuits around that yard to know every blade of grass and clump of dirt. That's not a walk. That's not good enough. You need to take them out and enjoy the scenery. There need to be variables involved. Take it from me, when you take a dog on a walk, they are passing in the pathway of many dogs before them, each one of whom has left a little calling card. but I'm sure that you dog owners know that you fall into routines, right? You fall into routes that you use. I try to keep the number extremely big and extremely varied. But your dog develops favorites too. And that's not lazy. That's not routine if your dog likes a route. Quite a few of the routes that I use with Frida don't have any little free libraries. They are out in the wilderness. I am equidistantly situated between 3 large areas of forested woodland, ponds, sculpted woodland, sculpted by Frederick Law Olmsted, part of the Emerald Necklace. I'm equidistantly situated between 3 of those, perfectly situated between 3 of them. Now, when I have a young dog who scoots right along on the sidewalk, that ambit will close considerably as she gets older, as all of my dogs have gotten older. Once upon a time, you could have found me for 2 hours almost every day at Jamaica Pond, which is a big kettle pond in Jamaica Plain. Left behind by the glaciers. It's a big, deep pond with large amounts of walkways and paths all around it. Time was when you could have found me there every day for 2 hours with my beagles. And then one by one, day by day, month by month, it became too much. They still enjoyed it. They still looked forward to it when we made this particular turn and they knew that we were headed to the pond. They were incredibly happy, but they didn't have the strength anymore to do it. And the same thing was true with all the other routes, with all of my dogs, not just beagles, but with my girls, my basset hound, and my pointer. And it will happen with Frida as well. But right now, all of those areas are wide open to us. So we go and we use them a lot. And when you're out in the woods, you don't have a little free library. But quite a few of our sort of neighborhood routes do. There are 3 little free libraries on our routes, and those neighborhood routes are very popular with my little bean. Far more popular than the wilderness, I might say. I like the wilderness, but she much prefers the idea of meeting people, humans. She's not all that interested in meeting dogs. She's not a totally blank slate when it comes to cats and other animals. Unless they come within her focus zone, her torpedo zone, something about the size of a mouse or a rat. If an animal is that size, a chipmunk, a vole, a squirrel, an actual mouse, God help us, then she's very interested in killing that thing. In just all of her mind just shuts off, and she instantly wants to kill that thing. but otherwise, by far her preferred thing is for us to wander around neighborhoods where she can come up behind someone who's squatting down in their garden, digging at a patch of dirt, and erupt in a scream that causes them to grab their straw hat and say, "What's going on?" Because not only does she want them to fuss over her, and she's not asking, she's telling. Not only that, but also she wants to make sure to tell them that they're doing it wrong. She loves that. So we go on those routes a lot. So I have little free libraries on my route. And I usually just bemusedly look at them. I usually don't take anything from them. It seems such a sacrilege. Almost everybody else who's looking at these things does not have a steady supply of free books coming in the mail every day. Almost everybody who looks at these things probably doesn't have the time to hang out at the Brattle Bookshop. So it seems wrong for me to go to one of these things and take something. But lately, I've found quite a bit. And the first time that it's happened 4 times. The first time that I saw something, I didn't take it. I just left it behind because I felt guilty. And I assuaged that guilt by filling a plastic bag with books here. So that when I decided to take the bean for a walk and I knew we were going on that route, I knew that I would be able to stock that library, which made me feel good about taking something. And I've continued to do that, where I'll put a couple of bags in a tote bag, a couple of books in a tote bag, and bring them along when I know that we're going by a little free library. A lot of our walks, I know for sure we're not going to go anywhere near any kind of human civilization, but quite a few, I do know that. And that has allowed me the guilt freedom to get a bunch of books. So I wanted to show you some of the things that I've gotten just in the last few visits to the little free library. And also I wanted a pretext to stick my nose into your business and ask you all sorts of questions about your own little free libraries. What they're like, how often they're restocked. Do you restock them? Do you know the people who put them up? Are you ever tempted to put one up of your own? Do you have one of your own? But the first one is... Oh, goodness. It's all right, baby. It's okay. What happened there? Oh, my God. It's a gigantic collapse of the whole world collapsing here. Okay, well, that was unplanned. That was totally unexpected here. Let's put everything back in order here. The whole world collapsed. Probably 15 books fell onto the floor because I touched something. But the first one that I found, one of the nice things, of course, Little Free Library, you can just grab stuff, right? The word is right there in the title. It's free. And so I found something that I can reconsider. I don't particularly like the author Julian Barnes. I don't dislike him. It's just his books usually just sit there for me. There are a few authors that are like that, contemporary authors, still working authors who are like that. I never know what to make of it. When I read book after book after book and they do nothing for me at all, I never know what to make of it. I found this one, England, which is an old trade paperback of a book of his that I don't know if this won the Booker. I remember reading this when it first came out. This came out in... I might even have reviewed this. This came out in 1998, so no, I wouldn't have reviewed it. Somebody at the Christian Science Monitor reviewed it, I'm sure, but it wasn't me. And this is the story of, let's see here, imagine in England where all the pubs are quaint, where the Windsors behave themselves mostly, where the cliffs of Dover are actually white, and where Robin Hood and his merry men really are merry. This is precisely what visionary tycoon Sir Jack Pittman seeks to accomplish on the Isle of Wight, a destination where tourists can find replicas of Big Ben at half size, Princess Diana's grave, and even Harrods, conveniently located inside the Tower of London. Martha Cochrane, hired as one of Sir Jack's resident no people, ably assists him in realizing his dream, but when this land of make-believe gradually gets horribly and hilariously out of hand, Martha develops her own vision of the perfect England. I remember reading this when it came out in the 90s and thinking, okay, well, this is fairly obvious. To call this satire would be, I mean, to call something as toothless and milky-eyed as this satire would be stretching the word till it screams for mercy. It's possible that this is sharper and maybe even a little meaner than I remembered. It has been a long time, so I will give it another try. But of course, I want to show you the other books that I found, but now I'm afraid to even touch that pile lest it collapse again. I found this in perfect condition, just perfect condition science fiction. This is the first two books of The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. So this is The Shadow of the Torturer and The Claw of the Conciliator. Now, I love the old Timescape paperbacks of these two books. The whole of them. I once had all of these in the old Timescape mass market paperbacks. I'm never going to see those again. I once even had a box set of those. God only knows what that box set of mass market Timescape paperbacks cost now in the secondhand book market. It's probably $90. I don't think I'll ever see those mass market paperbacks again, but then again, they're not all that durable to read. This is in perfect condition. This is, well, I wonder if this will tell me. I might as well just read it to you, right? The Book of the New Sun, unanimously acclaimed. Okay, highly beloved. Yes. Okay, this is something. It's science fiction bordering into fantasy, slowly aging out into fantasy that you really do need to read. But are you going to tell me anything about this? The Shadow of the Torturer is the first volume in this 4-volume epic, a tale of young Severian, who an apprentice at the Guild of Torturers on the world called Earth with a U, U-R-T-H, exiled for committing the ultimate sin of his profession, showing mercy toward his victim. And Severian has perfect recall, which is how he remembers every single detail of the story that he's telling you. So there are none of the usual narrative gaps in a first-person narrative. He's supposed to be the ultimate reliable first-person narrator, although Gene Wolfe finds plenty of ways to get around that. And then The Claw of the Conciliator, it continues the story of Severian, banished from his home, as he undertakes a mythic quest to discover the awesome power of an ancient relic and learn the truth about his hidden destiny. And a lot of the relics in here are much along the lines of, for instance, the Viraconium books of M. John Harrison, where it's not so much fantasy as it is buried ancient advanced technology that no one really understands. And these are beautiful, just beautifully done, completely eloquent. I only found this one. I didn't find the second volume, but that's okay. That's absolutely okay, since I just, walked away with it. I put my own books in. I wasn't just freeloading, but I perfectly happy to take it. I would have paid $1 for this at the Brattle. So then this next one, like the Julian Barnes, only a lot more so. Julian Barnes, I am tepid about. Meh. Every once in a while, he'll write a book that I kind of sort of like. Most of his books are just there. I read them. I don't find any egregious flaws with them. It's not like it's a fraud being perpetrated on the reading public or anything like that. It's just, It's just there. It's well done. It's competently done. It's the sort of thing where if I devoted time and attention to it, I could do it myself, and so could you. And that, I don't typically lunge to review such stuff. There's plenty of authors like that. Even today, there are plenty of authors like that. I don't usually rush to review it. There's really nothing for you to grip onto if you're reviewing. What are you supposed to say about a book like that? And there are way too many of them. This next author is another author that I don't have much in the way of pronounced affection for, but here it's disaffection. Here it's an author I don't like. Here I think there is an element of fraud involved, and that author is, of course, Nabokov. I've mentioned my distaste for Nabokov many times on this channel, causing whales of disagreement from all sorts of quarters. There are plenty of you who really like Nabokov. He's particularly popular with the famously aimless young male reader set between the ages of 18 and 25. And I have read everything by this author. I have tried with this author. I guess I will continue to try with this author. But this is a perfect case of Booktube convergence in a book. I saw this at a little free library. This is a vintage paperback of Ada or Ardor. Again, I don't make up these titles. I wish that I did. And the Booktube convergence is that I watched a young booktuber who is in that demographic. I don't know his name, but his channel is called There Will Always Be Another Book, or Twawab. if you want to just abbreviate it, Twawab is his channel. I'll leave a link to his video. There's a video where he discusses this book, where he discusses Ada, and says that he really likes it. He just finished it, I think, 10 minutes before he made his video. It's an endearing discussion. It has a lot of my bugboos with Booktube book discussions. pointed book discussions. So not opening a book in the mail where you didn't know what was in the package until you opened it, and also not a library haul where you're going over what you're telling to your viewers is your initial reactions to the book, your initial reasons for picking it off a library book sale or something like that. Not those kind of books, those kind of videos, but rather the kind of video where it's your intent, it's your conscious intent to make a video discussing a particular book. Nonfiction, fiction, whatever it is. One of my little bugbears with videos like that, it happens a lot on Booktube, is that the person who's making the video will be completely unprepared. They won't remember any details, or most of the important details that they need to know. I watched a video like that today where the young guy who was talking about a book, he did a very good job talking about the book, but he didn't remember even the state where the book took place. There's a little bit of that in Twawab, but the main thing that comes through in that video is passion. How much he adored this book. I remember not adoring it at all. I think I read this when it first came out. Yeah, 1979, 1969, 1970. I probably read this in 1970. I haven't read it since. And when I saw it in a little free library, I immediately thought of Twawab. So I will leave a link to his video down below, but how can I pass it up? You know, whether he gets precise details wrong in his video or not, I was still moved by his obvious excitement, his obvious passion. And as I've mentioned many times before about Booktube, one of the things that I find completely undeniable, in the sense of both not being able to say that it exists and also not being able to resist it. One of the things that I find irresistible on Booktube is when somebody brings that passion to something that I don't like or have dismissed or have been only, so-so about. When that happens, I tend to grab that something the next time I see it at the Brattle or a little free library or a charity shop or wherever and give it another try. That's all that I need. So I might not have bought this for $5 at the Brattle, but I will gladly take it for free, especially since I am paying my freight. I am delivering books to little free libraries. And then the last two here are Penguin Classics, which I have in mass market. I'm not 100%, I wasn't when I saw them 100% sure if I don't already have them in trade paperback too, and I haven't gone to check. But on the chance that I didn't have them, I wasn't going to leave them behind. And they're both Livy. My beloved Livy, the Roman historian Livy, who wrote one enormous book for the whole of his creative life, from the founding of the city, Ab Urbe Condita. And we don't have the whole of that book, that monstrously huge thing, which he wrote in segments, in installments, in time periods. He did a lot of research, but he also did a lot of what we would now consider to be creative writing in it. It's, in my opinion, one of the greatest marriages of those two. It stands, as far as a marriage of those two aspects of writing, it stands for me on the same shelf as Carlyle's The French Revolution. It's an amazing thing that you really shouldn't get all that uptight about. I realize that the current last century and a half idea about history and the historiography comes from the Germans, from a German school of historiography, and the Germans are quite good at being uptight, but nevertheless, I myself think that there's a lot more historical veracity and meat to Livy than has usually been said. The Germans tended to dismiss him out of hand as a fabulist. He was looking at sources that they would have loved to see, and he wasn't dumb. He just had a rhetorical aim in mind. If they claim when they're writing their own histories that they don't, I don't know who they think they're fooling. But I found 2 volumes. Penguin Classics does 4 volumes. They break Livy up into 4 volumes. They shouldn't. They shouldn't do that. They make a King James Bible that's this big. It's slightly oversized trade paperback. It has onion skin thin pages. And because of those 2 adaptations, they were able to fit an enormous work into 1 volume. They could do the same for Livy. And have a 1-volume Livy in English. That would be incredible. But they haven't done it. And as far as I know, nobody has done it. But I found 2 volumes. I found the early history of Rome. This is the first volume. Has the earliest books of Livy. There is the wolf that suckled Romulus and Remus. And this has the story of Romulus and Remus. And the kings, the expulsion of the Tarquins, all of the earliest, very mytho-historical stories that the Romans like to tell themselves. It's worthwhile to keep in mind that when Livy was writing these things, the Romans weren't really telling themselves that these things were myths. They were telling themselves that these things were real. I think it's fascinating. This is a translation by Aubrey de Selincourt. I think it's been adapted. It's got an introduction by R.M. Ogilvy and a preface by S.P. Oakley. I don't know if this has been adapted. A lot of times Penguin, instead of commissioning a new translation, will take an old one and sort of stick some new scholar on it to fix it up, brush it up, get rid of the periodisms, the Edwardianisms, and all of that stuff. I don't know if they've done that with this, but it's a lovely trade paperback and of something that I haven't reread in English in quite some time. And then I also found Rome and Italy. Also, Livy, this is the Betty Radis. Yeah, the Betty Radis translation. This is in perfect condition. Just sitting there on the shelf. I wasn't going to leave it behind. My mass markets are ready to give up the ghost. So these things, these two trade paperbacks, are not as well bound as the mass markets. This is not a Penguin that sits open on the table, right? It's not a floppy Penguin spine that used to be a hallmark of Penguin Classics. Neither one of these has that floppy spine. So I will have to be careful with these things. And I have ebooks of them. But I grabbed both these absolutely from Little Free Library. So a Little Free Library Steve haul. We got two. These came from, I think, 2 out of the 3 of the Little Free Libraries that the Bean and I frequent. So we have 2 volumes of Livy. We have Ada, or Otter, and I will try to remember to leave a link to Twawab's videos so that you can see him flounder around expressing his love of this book. Then we have Shadow and Claw, the first 2 books in the New Earth books, and England, England by Julian Barnes. A very much so meh writer of mine that I really want to revisit. If he can make me think different about himself, I would like him to do that. So, because then I get a new author out of the deal, right? I have all of his backlog that I could go through. So anyway, there you go. That is what I've got out of the free library in the last little bit of time. Not even a full week, I don't think that means. And there's also my questions for you. Tell me the stories of your little free library. What's it like? Do you have many where you are, or none? Do you have a big one? If you want, feel free to email me a picture of your little free library or all of your little free libraries. What kind of luck do you have there? Do you feed your little free library, or do you only take from it? I'd be curious to know. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, Booktube.